Hi guys, Mama Mita here, and tonight I have a bread recipe for you using the Sunbeam 5833. Yes, it's still around. I know it's so old, poor machine. You guys, I have this really special recipe, and this one is with cranberries, or you could use cran raisins and wild rice.
Wow. Yeah.
So recently I was on a little trip and I went across America. I went all the way up to Canada and I came back and I was going across and I got somewhere, I'm thinking it's maybe like in Montana area, and the city was called Blue Earth. My goodness. I stopped to get some gas at this little convenient gas station. It's a Shell actually in Blue Earth. And I thought, oh, well, it's very interesting convenience store. Like they had like a little deli and stuff. And they had all these wonderful old Dutch chips. And so I got these old Dutch pulled pork chips. And this lady, I believe her name was Mrs. Bird, and she was selling, she had made sandwiches up and stuff, and she had put them in the deli, in the cooler. And I picked one up. And it was a chicken salad that was on this cran raisins or cranberries with wild rice. And boy, that thing was so good. I'm thinking, well, when I get back, I gotta make me a loaf of that.
Nice.
Now, I don't know if I'm going to use chicken salad because I thought, yeah, chicken salad's good. But I got some pork chops, so I'm thinking tomorrow I could either do pork chops or I could do a pork loin, and I could chop that up and use that instead of the chicken. So that's what I'm going to be making tonight for you guys, is this loaf of bread with the bread machine. So let's get right at it. Okay, so there is the recipe. Okay, so the first thing that we would put in there would be the 1 1/4 cup of milk. And I warmed that milk up just a little bit, so I didn't want it to be cold, so just, warm, okay? And then the next thing I put in would be my salt, which is going to be 1 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Then the next thing would be 2 tablespoons of the honey. Well, I went right back in that gas station after I finished that sandwich. I went right back in there and I told that girl, I said, you know what? I want to tell you something. This is really a good sandwich. You guys did a great job on this. So tell her that her sandwiches are really good. And she was really happy to hear that. When somebody does a good job, it's nice to tell them, that they did a good job, because it makes them feel good and it keeps them always going, encouraged. Okay, so that's the 2 tablespoons of the honey. Well, I see that the weather finally cleared up, but it's supposed to snow tonight. It's always something. The weather is so unpredictable. You never know. That's what makes it hard when you go on trips, because you have to carry a wardrobe in your car or on the bike too, and that's really hard because then you have to add extra things for if you're cold or if you're hot and stuff. It's really hard sometimes. Okay, so that's the honey. Then we're gonna go with the olive oil. So it's gonna be 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And now on the flour, you could either use all-purpose flour or you could use the bread flour. I like the bread flour. For me, that's what I like. And that's pretty much what I always use when I'm doing bread. Okay, so that's the 3 cups of the flour. So now at that point, then you're going to go with the, where to do it? Okay, so 3/4 cup of the cooked wild rice. And then you're going to have 1/4 of a cup of unsalted roasted sunflower seeds. And then we're going to go with 3/4 of a cup of the celery seeds. Then your last thing here would be, or next to last thing, is 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper, ground black pepper. Okay, so now at that point, what I usually do is I make sure there's kind of like a little well in there. I kind of don't like my yeast to get next to liquid, and certainly not next to sugar or the salt. I kind of like it to stay away, kind of next to the flour. Anyway, so there you go. That's the last thing, which was the yeast that went through there. Now, the cranberries will go after the first, when the beet comes out. So now we're going to put the machine on. So I plugged it in, and this is going to be your basic cycle. Can you hear that, how it makes that noise, that it goes down? You want to make sure that that's in there. Let's make sure. Yeah. Now listen for the click. Okay, so now it's in. Okay, so then at that point, I don't want to put my lid down, okay? Then I'm going to choose how dark I want it to be. Well, let's go crust color. I want it to be, what did I do here? Okay, wait a minute. No, what did I do? Sorry about that. Oh, no. This machine's almost as old as me. What in the world? Okay, we want it light, and we want the basic low. So let's go. Okay. Now we got it.
Oh, thank God.
Jeez. Okay, so now I'm going to let it do its thing, but I'm going to keep an eye on it, and I'm going to have my spatula ready for me, for that I make sure that it gets away from the side walls. Because if you don't get it away from the side walls, what will happen is that it will bake, but the flour doesn't get worked into the dough, and so it'll be like kind of like if you put too much flour in a cake pan, and you'll see all this brown crusty flour on the bottom, but it won't be part of the cake. So that's what you don't want. I haven't seen these machines lately at the Savers or at the Value Village or Goodwill. I haven't seen them lately, so I'm not sure what's going on. But this one's pretty easy to take apart and put things back together and stuff. So I'm okay with it. Plus, I have a backup of just exactly the same model. So when it picks up and it starts going a little faster, at that point, that's when I start getting in there and making sure that it is away from the wall. I'm going to bring the camera a little closer so you can actually see that. Okay, so now, see how I pushed that away from the wall? That's what you'd want to do if you had one of these machines, because these machines are really, really old. They're like some of the first bread machines that came out. And if it sounded like it was dragging or it felt like really stiff, then you could add a little bit more of like warm water to it, or a little bit of milk, warm, kind of warm. You don't want it to be cold because you want it to rise up. And that's what's nice about the bread machine, is because it does the dough for you. You're not having to sit in there working and stuff, and babysitting and stuff and trying to make sure that it's right. Now, if you didn't have milk, but you had powdered milk, then you could just, you could substitute that milk instead of, using the regular milk. Just do a little bit of the water, the 1 cup of water and 1/4 of a cup of the powder. And usually on my yeast, I usually buy the big bag of yeast, and then what I will do is I take it out of the bag and I put it in the refrigerator, like put it in a big plastic container, and put the date on it and leave it in the refrigerator. Because I just, make so much bread. those little packets, those little things are really expensive. Like, you know, you gotta start thinking about the prices of groceries nowadays. It's just getting ridiculous. I mean, like, it's a big difference in some of the items on the shelf and stuff. This little old lady, she was at the store the other day, and she asked me a question. Of course, I can't understand what she's saying, and I said to her, I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I said, "I'm hearing impaired." She said, "Can you get that down off the shelf?" And what she was wanting some baking soda for her refrigerator, and I told her, "Well, you can just get the cheaper, you know, one for 50 cents cheaper, and if you're buying 2 boxes of it, that's $1 save." She looked at me and said, "You're right." "Yeah, you're right. $1's $1. Poor thing. You know, I feel sorry for them, you know, because it's hard for them sometimes. Okay, I think I'm going to add a little teeny bit of warm water to that. It seems like it's a little bit dry. Okay, you see the difference now? You see how that picked that up? Okay, now can you see that in the far corner there? Now, if I do not take that off the bottom there, that will bake and it will become separate from the bread. So I want to make sure that I got that off of there, that it's into the loaf. Once it gets in the loaf, that's fine, but I want to make sure that it's in there. I think where it got a little dry is maybe the roasted sunflower seeds. Okay, now that looks good to me, so I'm going to let that go. Now, it's the machine's setting at 254 right now. So when it becomes 215 at that point, I'm going to add the cranberries. Well, cran raisins. I've got cran raisins. I don't have cranberries. So I'm going to add those, and then it will work, and it will go back up then again. So that at that point, it'll be finished. But it'll let me know. Okay, and we'll come back to that. The bread machine has went off now, so the bread is finished. So let's take a peek and see how it came out. Well, I think that looks really nice. Oh my God! Wow! That looks really, really good. Boy. Okay, so let me put the camera down so that I can take it out, and let's see how it comes out. Okay, it's nice and hot. Ooh, jeez. Have to be really careful because this thing's really, really super hot. Okay. Well, there's the bottom of it. So the petal's still inside. Not a problem. Okay. Look at that. I think that's pretty nice, actually. That'll make a nice loaf of sandwich bread. Okay, so this is a 1.5 pound loaf of bread, okay? So now let's see how it's gonna come up when we slice it. Normally I let it cool off a little bit. Now look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Wow.
Hey, that looks pretty good.
Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed this or not, but if you've been to the grocery stores lately, bread has really gotten very high. And at one point, I was at the grocery store in Texas, and there was this really nice loaf of bread that I wanted to get. But it was $7. And I thought that was pretty high, but most of the bread was kind of high there, and I thought, wow, that's really expensive. But now, when I got back to Washington State, actually, no, the bread up here is really high too now. So this loaf here, now this is a bread flour. It's not organic bread flour, but it's bread flour. And so I would say this loaf of bread is below $2. I didn't really price it out yet because, you know, the flours went up a little bit. I did see a bag of flour that day for $6, and I thought, goodness, that's a lot of money for flour now. But I had bought quite a bit of flour before stocking up on flour, you know, making sure that we were going to have flour because of the grocery store issues with the virus and stuff. So I need to use that up, and hopefully by that time something will happen and they'll start lowering some of these prices. I don't know, because it's really kind of crazy, like how expensive things have just suddenly just jumped. But this is a really nice loaf of bread, and you know what's going in this bread. It's not chemicals and stuff. And I found that what works for me the best with this loaf of bread, especially in the summer, is I wait and let it cool off a little bit, and then I slice it, okay? And then once I slice it, there is a certain little container. You can buy them either at the, you can buy these little containers at either Savers or the Goodwill or Value Village. What it is, it's a Tupperware old ice cream bucket or tub, and it just fits this 1.5 pound loaf of bread absolutely perfect. So you slice it up and you put it in this little tub, right? And then you stick it in your freezer. And so when you need a slice of bread, you just get whatever you need out of your freezer, out of the little ice cream thing, and then put it back in the freezer. And you take maybe one slice of bread or two slices of bread, and you got your little toaster, you toast it. Or, you can put it in your toasting machine. You can do a microwave to warm it up a little bit, but it works great. And that way you just use the bread as you need it. Because what's happening sometimes is like you go out and you buy a loaf of bread, but then you don't eat it fast enough and it molds. That's another thing. If you're buying your bread and something and you get that little ice cream bucket, or even a Tupperware or a Rubbermaid thing that will fit that loaf of bread nicely in there, just put it in there and pull it out as you need it, and that will save you a lot of money, because your bread will not get mold, because it won't get up molding, on the outside, because it's sitting out in the heat. Because in the summer when it gets hot, the bread molds faster than it does in the wintertime. But we keep our bread like in a big Tupperware container up on the counter, like the French bread, and it keeps the French bread really nice and soft, where it's not like a rock or something. But even if it was to get to be like a rock and hard, you can still save that loaf of bread by putting a little bit of sprinkle of water on it. Just put water on your hands and splash it all around the bread a little bit, and then put it in the oven and warm it up, and the bread just comes right back to life. Don't waste it. Use it for something. If you have to cut it up in little squares, use it for croutons. You can use it for bread pudding, which is super easy to do. If you got milk and eggs and sugar and bread, leftover bread, you got bread pudding. Times are tough, guys. We got to start saving now, They're getting on our case now about wanting to hit our pocketbooks, and so we gotta slap back, No, you're not gonna touch my pocketbook. But they're hitting you pretty hard now at the grocery stores. I'm just like, oh my goodness sakes, that's a lot of money. I'm like, wow, things have just really gotten expensive. Time to start looking around for flower seeds or for vegetable seeds, and have your own garden out there. Even if you have to go get a Home Depot bucket and drill holes in the bottom and stick some dirt in it, you can do that. Stick it up in a lawn chair so it's up off the ground, so you don't have to bend over because you're like, oh, my back, my poor back. No. Do like I said, put it in a lawn chair and it's up high enough. No one cares. If they're coming over your yard, big deal. Tell them it's your garden. Hey, so what? You got a garden, they don't. You guys, now, here's my bread. Looking great. I'm going to slice it up now and put it in a container, put it in the freezer, and so I'm good to go. So now I just got to get the pork chops ready, or the pork one, which I have both. If you guys enjoyed this video today, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my video channel. Please, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Bye now. Have a good evening.